So thanks for coming by and welcome. I'm going to present a case study about how our organization, FIS Mobile, implements service virtualization to help us with rapid iteration as we make a digital transformation in our organization. So skip some boilerplate stuff there and get into the agenda. All right, so I'm going to just kind of walk through how we went through with the pre-sales folks, looking at some of our existing tools. We're, a technology-first organization, so we developed an in-house system for mocking out back-end integrations, and that's worked very well for us for a very long time. But as we move into a broader microservices ecosystem, we need a tool that can iterate rapidly with us and that we can use across the organization. It doesn't require kind of our most intensive knowledge-heavy resources to be able to maintain this heavyweight back-end code system. And then I'll walk through some other things as well. Okay, so it would help to learn a little bit about who we are as FIS Mobile. We're one of the biggest white label financial technology providers in the country. And across many countries. We're a 55,000 person organization. Our mobile team, however, is on the order of 400 people, and we provide mobile solutions and digital solutions for many banks and credit unions through channel partners and through direct installations and on-premises installations. So if I mention FI, I'm talking about a financial institution. That'll be in my slides a lot. We're bringing a cross-channel experience and feature sets across different channels. Where we are intersecting right now with innovation is that we're looking at different platforms like voice, like car, and we're trying to figure out where the inroads with traditional banking solutions are going to be on those sectors. So, maybe the thing that you've always done through mobile doesn't necessarily work if you're talking to your Alexa. So we're about trying to figure out where those cross sections with new technologies occur and take advantage of those to offer those to our financial institutions. We're also a mobile payment solution provider, so I can dig into this a little bit more. So some of our history, we helped launch and develop the first and one of the most successful pay-by-phone applications ever, which was the Starbucks pay-by-phone. They do something like 30% of their transactions through that now, so hugely successful. It kind of relies on people's addiction to caffeine to keep coming back, but it made a really nice reload service that wound up doing really well. And then with BMO and PNC, Bank of America, we've developed their mobile solutions. In some instances, they're using our middleware, and sometimes with the larger groups, they'll want more control over the technology. We'll just do, function in sort of a application development role, and we will put together native applications for them. But a lot of these big banks, they're looking for technology partners that can help them bridge the gap to new technology. In the past, it was check deposit. Going forward, it'll be voice as a platform. So we kind of provide that expertise, and then sometimes larger institutions will take that in-house, but other times people are looking to us to be their digital partner. They're looking to us to provide the digital solution and think about the innovative new products that are coming out and launch them into the next kind of digital age. Oh yeah, there was one more I didn't mention on there before I get into the architecture here. So we also do payment solutions, like I mentioned, Starbucks. We're also going to do a pay by the pump application. I'm not allowed to say the name yet, but shortly you'll see that rolled out across the country with one of the largest fuel retailers. It's about leveraging some of our existing networks that we have to fuel things like cardless cash access, where you can go to an ATM with your phone and take out cash without having to use a debit card. We use that same provider to roll into a pay at the pump solution. So we're really about making connections that we have with different financial services to other market segments. We're always looking to find where kind of the next big thing is going to be for digital and payments. So just so you have some idea of what we're working with and what we're trying to support with service virtualization. We have a number of channels. We kind of started in the mobile and tablet space, and we're expanding. We have a web solution that's being upgraded right now to connect into our digital API suite, which is kind of our new platform, our digital platform. And then we're looking at some of these other things like voice and auto. We don't have a ton in those spaces yet, but those are some of the new spaces we're investigating. Home automation as well, around financial transactions. So the way this whole thing works is all these channels come in through a gateway, and then they connect to our platform services and then standard financial functions, right? And we have our teams developed in vertical units so they can do the application development for this at the same time they're developing out the API sets that connect in either to third parties or into FIS systems or cores if it's deployed in an on-premises installation. So these are our different market segments that our teams are focused on. In addition to that, when we work with larger institutions that want to differentiate, we provide kind of an out-of-the-box solution, but folks that want to do something unique will likely fall into that pink column on the end there, and they'll do some type of custom work with us. We can help them do it themselves. We can also work with them to do it for them, depending on kind of what their capacity is and what their technology, acumen is on their side. And this connects into all these different systems on the back end to provide kind of a unique solution. So dig into that a little bit more. So, okay, now getting into what we were trying to do here with service virtualization. We had this legacy mocking framework. It was called FRED, similar to how Lisa, I don't really know the origins of the Lisa name. I don't even know the origins of our own FRED name. Somebody had an acronym. Everybody likes acronyms, right? It's about inventing jargon in the technology world. So someone invented that, but the concept is this robust backend solution that's trying to mimic integrations into our different backend systems. One of our challenges, however, is that we write integrations into a number of different backend systems, and this really just represented one backend system. So when we GA a product, it's GA'd, but until it starts to get deployed into these different backend systems on premises in our hosted solution, you don't really get the field testing that's necessary to prove out the integration portions of that. And that's where we were looking to service virtualization to help out there, because what service virtualization allows you to do is record traffic in between your backend and another backend and then reflect it back, right? So while in the past we basically just had one integration that we were testing against, SV allows us to test our product against a number of different backend systems. So this legacy mocking framework, it was very dynamic and it was developed that way, but it was very developer-centric, right? It requires, if you want any updates to it, requires somebody to get in there, extend a new class, create a new service, and it always required development resources to create new integration systems. So it's extensible Java applications deploying Groovy scripts to do kind of pre-post handling of requests, and we could do a lot with that, but it's difficult to maintain. It kind of requires our most expensive resources, our engineers, to sit there and update that whenever things changed. So I was going into this a bit, but let's dig in a little bit further. Some of our existing challenges. We've got about 1,500 banks through direct and channel integrations. We've got multiple integrations. They're not all serviced by this in-house mocking framework. So while that helped us with standard integrations, it's a kind of a SOAP service, we also connect with RESTful backends, and we had absolutely zero mocking tools for those RESTful backends. So what we were doing with those is we were entirely reliant on the lower level, fully integrated backend systems provided by some of these institutions and channel partners. The challenge there is, if it goes down, we have some kind of SLAs, but with lower level environments, it's you don't get the best, right? So if something goes down, it can be hours of time before it comes back up. If a CRED gets locked out on this fully integrated system, you've got to call somebody, you've got to send an email. It can waste massive amounts of developer time. It's really problematic to only have that as kind of the back-end solution for that. And that's why, of course, we have a mocked integration system, or we have always traditionally had that. But when you don't have it for all of your integrations, how can you really say the product's GA'd? You haven't tested it against all these integrations. Some of the credit unions and banks and channels that we work with too, they like to do things that are outside of our standard product stack. And my team, the client services engineering team, we do our professional service engagements with them through my team. So we'll do custom development through that, and that's not part of our product solution to add that to our mocking framework, Fred, right? So we didn't have a good way to easily stand up these mocks, and we're trying to provide lean, new services that are innovative and interesting in a reasonable time frame. So as soon as you start stacking on the red tape of, well, I've got to develop out a whole mocking infrastructure for you as well, it becomes untenable, and it's not something that they want to hear either. It's like, it only takes a little bit of time to develop this, but now you've got to tack on an extra 200 hours for this mock backend. Right? That doesn't make any sense, right? So another big challenge here is, of course, the available of third-party services, right? I was talking about core integrations being unavailable, but when you're working in our segment, right, there's a lot of integrations with other fintech providers, and we want to do that to capture spaces that we're not necessarily investing in around AI, around digital receipts is one of the things we've done recently. We've partnered with that. Location services, card controls. There's a lot of great fintech providers that we partner with, but when you're integrating with them and connecting to those back-end systems, it's spotty availability, right? I mean, again, the lower level environments don't have SLAs. You don't, you can try, and then if something goes down, you got to start sending the email. So it's extremely problematic to not have that consistent availability. So, there's operational challenges as well wiring to those third-party environments. These are all kind of B2B server connections, right? So sometimes you've got to be within the whitelist, you've got to be VPN'd. If I have the service contract, I want to be able to do the development right away. As soon as I've got that service contract, I know what the response is going to look like. If it's going to work, take 2 weeks to work through my operational team or my ITO team to connect to that backend system before all the lines are dotted, I don't want my development team to be hung up because of that, right? So if I have a service contract and I can develop a mock system that mimics that contract, then I can start that development early before the integration to the actual system happens. And yeah, so the other big challenge here, like I mentioned, is Fred. Fred was a great tool for what it was, and we still use it, but as we go into this microservice ecosystem, we're trying to rapidly increase our production of new product. We're trying to use microservices to connect to third parties and provide new internal feature sets around user profile management. All of that is coming on a faster release cycle as we kind of improve our development organization and pipeline, and the mock system that we had could not keep up with that. We didn't have the capacity from a development standpoint to write a backend integration for every one of those new services, and we needed something that was user friendly beyond just the developers who know about this backend tool. To provide a back-end solution, a back-end integration for all of these new services so we can just push out more product on a quarterly basis. Okay, so one of the challenges obviously that we have is with Fred, it was very dynamic. And obviously if I'm just recording traffic and I'm just sending it back, it's a little more static. So this is kind of the solution I was looking at, we were looking at before. Turned on its side. The cloud shows you how we connect into the different financial institution host systems and different third-party providers like check deposit providers, bill pay providers, location services, etc. So here's the same image with service virtualization stood up. Where we've focused primarily on is this first service virtualization box right here, which is connecting into the FI host system and into some of these third-party service providers. What we're looking at in the future, and I'll go into this a little bit more, is we've got integration systems that connect into different cores. We're looking to see if we can't start leveraging service virtualization to do the same thing with that development in the same way that you have challenges connecting into our aggregator. The aggregator has challenges connecting into its own back-end system. So we're looking to see if we can't leverage that as well. Okay, so this, proving out a use case, this was the most important piece, right? So one of our challenges that happened prior to service virtualization is that we write integration systems, mocked integration systems in Fred to represent what we think the integration is actually going to look like. But when we connected to the actual integration, it sometimes was not apples to apples, right? So our primary use case was getting an actual integration response returned from service virtualization. We kind of worked through this with the pre-sales team when we were looking at the CA service virtualization tool, and this was kind of the low-hanging fruit because it's fairly standard just to record a service and to be able to reflect it back. So that's what we focused on first. Our other challenge is, the actual integration system. It can go down for weeks at a time sometimes as part of a disaster recovery effort that happens a couple times a year. And that was kind of the number one thing we wanted to prove, because that's obviously where you've got a bunch of people basically sitting on their hands when they can't do any testing or development against that system. And we needed something to stand up in the place of that. So yeah, so this basically allows us to skip disaster recovery exercises as a downtime for our team, and any other downtimes as part of deployments that go awry on our backend system. Anytime something goes down, we can just switch over to the service virtualization instance that has the actual integration coming back. And then this was the other use case that I talked about a little bit. This is where you can look at a schema or a WSDL. You can look at REST specs, and it's great to have that. And you get a good understanding of how to develop your services to connect into that from those specs. But without actually having the integration stood up, you basically are just you're playing the waiting game. You have to wait until that service exists on some lower level environment to test how your integration that you've developed connects into it. Now you can write local unit tests, which we do as well, to make sure that the expectation that comes back, if it completely matches the service contract, that your code is responding appropriately. But until you connect into an actual integration, you can't really prove it out. So this allows us to stand up a service based on a WSDL or a schema and reflect back the expected response prior to those integrated systems being stood up. So it kind of enables us to execute against actual integration specs as opposed to expected objects mocked within a mocking framework like Mockito or something like that. All right. So dynamic response capabilities. Now, one of the challenges we had, and we worked a lot with CA on this, is that our previous system was extremely dynamic, right? You could completely control every little in and out of a response. And you can do that with service virtualization too. And we dug very deeply into the shared memory map to look at storing data in a given session and then reflecting that back in subsequent responses. But as a technology-first organization, we kind of delve into that really quickly. But what happened there is that we found that we were approaching the challenges that we had previously with our dynamic solution by investing a lot into a very dynamic system. So we've kind of had to rethink a little bit what we're expecting out of this tool, right? Are we expecting something that is like a fully integrated back-end system that updates across sessions, across banking sessions with new data? We probably don't need that. If we can update within sessions, that's probably enough. So it's been an interesting challenge opportunity for us to look at how we can fall on this spectrum, because we want our services to be dynamic, but we also need it to be scalable. We need to be able to rev this up really quickly, not require too much in the way of development resources, and really make use of some of the benefits of the tool, like a quality assurance resource being able to stand one of these systems up as well to test out a use case. So we're still finding that balance on how dynamic we want our testing to be, and how dynamic we make service virtualization to match that. So this was a big thing for us too. So one of the challenges we have is we have so many different services, different use cases, and to account for that in a fully integrated system, we have all these Excel sheets of users with different capabilities, right? We have a concept called entitlements, where when a user signs in, they're entitled to certain portions of functionality, and we use this for beta testing. We use it to control security for certain users if they shouldn't be able to access certain features, and allows us to roll stuff out dark and then light it up later. And it's very robust capability, but what happens is we have these long sets of users with all these different entitlement capabilities, and you basically have to have a team of people that are managing users, what they have access to, which ones are locked out at any given time, what their passwords are, what their challenge questions are. So one of the things that was great as we started recording all these different back-end integration services was that we realized we can probably cover 80 to 90% of use cases with a single super user. Instead of having certain users that only have access to certain systems because those systems can't be lit up as part of the actual integration at the same time, with service virtualization, we can glom it all together, and then we can have a single user that connects into everything. And in the past, where you had to have user credentials that had all these specific entitlements, now we can have any user you want. So we have it set up now, so any user, any password allows you to get in. So you can create users on your own. You don't have to go to some other resource. It's really allowed us to free up some time for people that need to get in here and test this, to start looking at things, especially from a marketing perspective. We have an innovation lab where we bring kind of executives from some of our financial institutions, and we kind of ideate with them, right? We show them proof of concepts. We get their wheels turning about interesting things that they're excited about. We show them our innovations. They tell us about their ideas. And it's a great cycle, but the challenge there is managing these credential sets to get into these proof of concepts. So having something where it doesn't require that management saves a ton of time for us. Maximizing coverage, okay. So I talked a little bit about this, right? So our primary integration, which a lot of financial institutions that we work with from a direct perspective, as well as some of our largest channels, implement a standard SOAP interface that's been around for a very long time for us. But then we also have some people that want to do really interesting stuff, and they have a RESTful interface. That's our second largest channel. They have a completely custom RESTful interface, and it's used to fuel their online banking solution, which they don't do through us. So they need to keep this solution up and available, and they can't switch over to our other solution. And it requires our GA'd product to integrate into this. They also are one of the most aggressive kind of pursuers of new engagements with us around interesting technologies. They've got a secure message center. They wanted to do some complete redesigns on our new platform, our new digital platform, and add a bunch of functionality. They have a very cool concept called spendable balance, where you get to see your available balance, but then they kind of take out upcoming transactions, so you have a better idea of actually what you can spend. Because available balance, you can't spend all of it, right? Because you've got a bill coming up. So this kind of takes into account some of those things. And Fred was never designed to support new integrations like that, and definitely not those add-in feature sets. So any integration that's not in the standard model, Fred was not there to function for. And again, like I mentioned, we've never really had a mocking solution for that second largest channel, which is is silly to think about, but we had no way to connect into a mock service for this. So we're just so reliant on their actual integrated lower level environments. So this may be a little bit bold of a statement, but really, it was a very quick process for us to stand up the RESTful recorder on service virtualization, run traffic through that, and then reflect it back. And that it allowed us to go from no mock solution to kind of a fully mocked integrated solution to our RESTful channel in a very short amount of time. Yeah. So I was mocking the mockless. That's the takeaway on that one. So yeah, as we look into what we've done so far with service virtualization, we're also looking into kind of some additional use cases, like I mentioned. Digital service modules. So our microservice strategy is all centered around these digital service modules, and they're, it's kind of Docker based. We're using some tools around that to move to a microservice architecture, and we're using these DSMs as individual functionalities to stand up against third parties or back into our own integration systems. And we don't have an easy way to mock this. Actually, in the initial DSM development stages, we were doing zero integration testing. It was all just unit tests. So we were all just reflecting standard mocked objects inside a unit test inside these DSMs, because that was the rapid iteration way that our developers felt they needed to do this development to get the product out on time and to start moving quickly. We want to put a lot of product out fast. You kind of add those requirements onto your developers and they figure it out, right? But sometimes they don't figure it out in a way that's very scalable or necessarily helps with this integrated testing. So this is something we're looking at. We're not quite there yet, but we really want to look to use service virtualization to back-end these DSMs and allow for kind of an independent development environment for our developers that will get a full integrated back-end system test done before the product goes out in GAs. Because what happens is right now, GA a product, we actually start connecting to the integrated environments, we discover flaws. We discover flaws in our assumption, and that creates maintenance cycles, which take up a ton of time, and it's wasted time, really. If you do some of that integration testing ahead of time, you could save on those maintenance cycles. Let you guys absorb my GIF for a second. From Back to the Future, in case you guys forgot that. Okay, so the other kind of idea we've been toying with a little bit is as part of our digital transformation, we're investing heavily in developer tools. We like to say, in terms of development, that when we work with technology organizations, 1 + 1 = 3, right? We've got a platform. We're doing development on that platform. We want you to spend your development dollars on things that are interesting to you, but if you have to develop and maintain your own platform, it's going to suck up tons of your time, right? We want you to be able to focus on new and interesting, innovative features, and then fold them into our ecosystem and allow you to put out new innovative products without having to worry about the underlying platform that supports it. So as part of our developer tools, we have SDKs at kind of all different levels of development. Our client development's very modularized, similarly to how I'm mentioning our digital service modules are microserviced. So it's kind of a similar architecture on the client side. And we have SDKs around development for that. So if you're developing a web application you want to embed into your tool, it's not on our product roadmap, these SDKs allow you to do so. So as we're moving into this third-party SDK development ecosystem, we're thinking about ways that we can support testing back-end systems. For us to always have a stood-up, integrated back-end system for you to do client development on, it takes a lot of resources from us. So if we can stand up something like service virtualization to allow you to do client SDK development, especially around features that we may not even have in our product roadmap, that would be a great offering to our development ecosystem. So it could be kind of our solution to a more scalable, development-focused like module store for new types of features that banks are interested in. So approaching the end here, so summary, right? Digital transformation must embrace agility. Kind of key topics. We're a technology-first company, and we've traditionally gone all in on building our own solutions, and you may as well. Technology guys like to build things, so we've always done that as well, and we spend valuable resource time creating and maintaining that code that may or may not scale for the transformation that we're looking to undergo. Kind of findings, right? In our tried and true solution, we have some kind of process debt that makes it slower for us to move into this new ecosystem. So while we're still exploring these new use cases, we've learned a lot about this tool and how kind of the right tool in the right place can help us accelerate forward into the new digital landscape.